And in the end, they really were California Games. The end. Whew. That was a tough 3 years, but it's finally done. Now to unwind with some relaxing internet. In 1987, game developer Epix created California Games. It was a sports game of Epix proportions. Did I really write this? By 1987, Epix had already released summer, winter, and world games across multiple platforms, but California Games represented something a little different. Sports games of the 80s were, generally speaking, built around traditionally competitive sports. Sports like basketball, baseball, soccer, or gentlemanly fisticuffs. Even Epix's previous sports games had been heavily influenced by the competitive events of the Olympics, like poodle clipping and naked javelin. But California Games didn't fall into any of those categories. It didn't feature popular sports, and most of the events weren't even competitive. It was a risky move, but one that ended up paying off. In fact, California Games turned out to be so popular that over the span of 4 years, Epix released it 14 times. That's a whole lot of sports. Epix would later try to capitalize on this success by releasing the imaginatively named California Games 2. I think it speaks for itself. Do 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 do. We start off with half pipe, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You hold up to go up, you hold down to go down, and you press button 2 left or right to do little flippy things. Tony Hawk, eat your heart out, buddy. Alright, so I wouldn't be complaining if California Games had taken a couple of cues from Tony Hawk's 2. I think it would have been cool if they'd thrown in skate letters, barrels, secret tapes, wall rides, Tony Hawk, and a helicopter. I honestly think it would have made the game better. It's completely beside the point that Tony Hawk's 2 wasn't released for another 11 years. This is the internet. Did you really expect this video to make sense? More than anything, halfpipe is about timing your moves right. If you hold a trick too long, not long enough, or at the wrong time entirely, your face will be swiftly introduced to the ground. All up, there are a total of 3 different moves you can do. A kick turn, which is done in the lowest area of the halfpipe, a hand plant in the middle, and an aerial turn right up the top. The limited moveset simplifies the game, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It lets you concentrate on building up points without having to focus on complicated button presses, and I kind of appreciate that. Plus, the kid's like a 10-year-old. Give him a break. California Games is actually one of the reasons I wanted to learn to skateboard as a kid. I tried it once. Ended up breaking a fish tank. This is actually true. Next up, Footbag sees you take on the persona of an aspiring young athlete with the slowest reflexes ever. In saying that, it's still one of my favourite sports in the compilation. It's a little more complex than the others and gives you a much larger selection of tricks to play around with. Ever wanted to do a dodo? How about a double arch or a dizzy dean? Me neither. I have no idea what they are or how to do them, but this guy does. Thanks, Footbag guy. Once you've gotten used to how slowly he reacts, all you need to do is make sure you've put him in the right place to do a trick. There's 1 button to jump and 1 button to kick. Everything else, including how he kicks, is up to the Footbag guy. Footbag guy isn't a smart guy. Seriously, unless you're in precisely the right place, he will do everything except kick the way you want him to. He'll even go out of his way to dislocate his own knee, which is impressive? But if you're like me, you'll spend most of your time trying to hit that stupid seagull with the... Hey! Let's move on. The next event throws you headfirst into shark, dolphin, and water-infested water, with only fiberglass and a pair of buff manly man-arms to keep you afloat. But luckily, that's all you need. I might need those legs back. Thanks. Surfing is probably the most straightforward event in the game. You do as many tricks as you can before the time runs out, and you're given a judge's score and you're done. That's pretty much it. There's no running total though, so until you finish the event, you've got no idea how you're doing. You've just got to keep jumping and surfing in a circle and hope for the best. But jumping isn't quite as easy as it sounds. You'd think that you'd just be able to jump off a wave and jump back on again. But there are some weird physics in play here. You have to leave and re-enter the wave on precisely the same angle to land a jump. If you miscalculate even just a little bit, you get thrown off your board and eaten by sharks, which I guess seems reasonable. When I was a kid, I spent hours playing surfing. Most of that time was spent trying to land a 360-degree jump, which I never managed to do. But if being an adult has taught me anything, it's that chocolate is a breakfast food, and you should never give up on your dreams. I got a pretty good score for landing that too. Wait a minute. Is that?
Yeah, skating!
Skating? It's one of the fundamental laws of video games that forwards means forwards. Unless you're playing skating. Skating in California games has you control each of the skater's legs individually by alternating between up and down. It's a little weird, but it actually works surprisingly well. The event isn't set on a flat 2D plane, so the control scheme lets you move across the stage without having to use the entire D-pad. Because of the nature of skating, the alternation just feels kind of logical. And graceful. So graceful. But I have to be honest here, this skating course was easily the dumbest idea ever. Sounds like I'm exaggerating. I'm not. See what I mean? What is this? That was rhetorical. That's a banana peel. There is trash literally everywhere. Who looked at the proposal for this event and went, yep, looks good. And who keeps throwing these beach balls? You know what, this is much safer. I'm just gonna do this for a while. Oh god.
There's that stupid seagull again!
Okay, riding a bike. This is gonna be as easy as riding a bike. It's okay, I didn't want to ride that bike anyway. BMX is one of the only events where you have the benefit of real-world experience behind you. I mean, most people have ridden a bike before. This is nothing like riding a bike. So it might not be the most realistic transition into 8-bit, but BMX is still pretty impressive. Epix managed to squeeze 6 different tricks into the event, which, considering they only had 2 buttons and a D-pad to work with, wouldn't have been the easiest thing to do. There's a back flip, a front flip, there isn't a table flip, but there is a tabletop. But BMX isn't without its faults. Someone decided it'd be a great idea to take the brakes off my bike, build the goal 2 stories up, and leave a gaping hole at the end of the finish ramp. If you don't slow down in time, you end up apathetically front flipping off the edge. And then this guy flies in and bops his head to the music. You're lucky this ain't Duck Hunt, buddy. And finally, flying disc. Because there's nothing better than playing frisbee in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by bears. I've always thought of flying disc as a strange way to round out the sports in California games. It's probably the most unique, but it's also the most difficult event in the entire compilation. You start out by controlling the thrower with a weird little power and angle bar, which isn't too hard. It's kinda like playing golf with a frisbee. Shortly after writing this, I found out you can actually play golf with a frisbee. It's called frisbee golf. But the catching part isn't quite as easy. Catch it, catch it, catch it, catsup! It shouldn't be this difficult. All I want to do is catch a frisbee. It's like she never realized that her arms could move in a direction other than forwards. Or independently from one another. But maybe I'm being a little harsh. Flying disc takes a lot of getting used to, and the catcher isn't exactly the smartest guy around, but it's not a bad event, it's just... Well, that escalated quickly. California Games is one of those games that I always end up coming back to. Epix have created a fun and surprisingly addictive compilation of unusual sports. Not only that, but they've taken the time to make every event stand on its own. Frisbee golf is different to footbag, skating is completely different to BMX, and that's exactly how it should be. But don't take my word for it.
Hello, everybody. I love California games. Huh?
Hey guys, as always, thanks for watching. I grew up playing California games, and over 20 years later, I still love it to absolute pieces. So in keeping with that theme, what are some of the games that you grew up with? Let me know in the section below.